Hi, I'm Bill Cates, and you're listening to A Shark's Perspective.
Welcome back, and thank you for joining A Shark's Perspective. I'm Kenneth Kinney, but friends call me Shark. I'm a keynote speaker, a strategist, a shark diver, host of this show, and your chief shark officer. Is your message relevant to your audience and the people that you're trying to sell to and serve? So often, brands and people try only to focus on being unique, but not enough on being relevant to that audience. The question for your customer often becomes, are you right then? Right for me? Then ask yourself if your marketing message is cutting through the noise, and are you using radical relevance to win more ideal clients? We've continuously been blessed with great topics and conversations, and honored again to welcome another amazing guest today. Bill Cates is a client acquisition expert, a Hall of Fame speaker, a CSP, an entrepreneur, the founder of the Cates Academy for Relationship Marketing, and the author of 3 bestsellers on referrals, as well as the author of Radical Relevance. Sharpen Your Marketing Message, Cut Through the Noise, Win More Ideal Clients. And on this episode, we'll discuss Radical Relevance, the 17 rules, knowing your target, your market, and your bullseye, the problems with casting a wider net that can diffuse your message, the double-edged swords of technology, automation, and content, moving away from the I, our, and we, cognitive fluency, strategies and tactics, latent versus blatant, Maryland coastlines, and those fresh crabs, Ravens versus the Orioles, things to do in Iceland, and a lot more. So let's tune in to a radically relevant author speak with a radically relevant shark on this episode of A Shark's Perspective. Bill, welcome to A Shark's Perspective. Would you please give us a brief overview of your career and your background to date?
Yeah, so in case anybody misread or misheard, it's Bill Gates. Oh, see,
Yeah.
I even make a mistake myself. Bill Cates, not Bill Gates. See, I wake up every morning thinking, I'm Bill Gates. What can I go buy? Or what can I give away? All right, Bill Cates. Here's the deal. Bill Gates has a lot of money. Bill Cates, that's the man going to help you make more money. Gosh, I've been in the biz. I've done a lot in my life. Toured the country as a drummer in a rock and roll band years ago. Started and sold 2 book publishing companies. Then I got into this world of teaching, training, consulting, and taking what I knew and sharing with other people. I've been doing that for 30 years. And I don't know, I just love learning. I love sharing what I learn with other people in a way that they can use it. So I hope people find a lot of value from this program.
Well, and most of your publishing was books, magazines, newspapers.
Books.
What books?
Books. Yeah.
So how many books do you own today?
Well, when I say published, I wrote one, and then it turned into a publishing company where I published 45 books from other people. So I wasn't the author.
Yeah.
And that's what I sold. Then I've done 7 books since then.
Wow.
A few self-published, a few through McGraw-Hill. So, my parents are rolling over in their ashes thinking that their little son, Billy Cates, wrote books, I'm sure of it.
And that's why I still color in more than I've written. So, well, let's talk about this book. We were talking about it before you came out with this right before COVID, which was the craziest time for people publishing books, but it's still radically relevant. And the title of it's called Radical Relevance, Sharpen Your Marketing Message, Cut Through the Noise with More Ideal Clients. I enjoyed reading this a lot, but what was the impetus for the book? Tell me a little bit about it.
Yeah, it's somebody asked me the question that we should always ask ourselves or have people ask of us when we're working on a new project, whether it's a product or service or whatever it is. And the guy said to me, "What problem do you solve?" I said, "Well, in this case, people are having trouble getting in front of people, sales, marketing. They're having trouble getting in front of the right types of people that really fit their business." And so that's where we kind of shaped. I already had the idea of more relevance. And there's a lot of talk about what makes you different, and you gotta know what makes you different. Well, yes and no. First of all, it's hard to be unique, and it's hard to be unique with one specific trait. Not that there aren't some people that do that, but what your prospect really wants is, are you right for me? Are you relevant to me? I don't care whether you drive a blue car, red car, or yellow car. if you're flashy with this or that, but if you're right for me, that's all I really want to know. So that's what relevance is all about, is making sure that the message is clear and right for the right person at the right time in the right way.
Well, you talk early on about there being, roughly 3,000 touch points a day. And how do you take a brand then to jump into that mix to themselves be radically different to their audience with their own ads, their own content, their own social media?
Yeah. So it boils down to really truly knowing your market, and I'll say your target and then your bullseye. So, and I know you understand these concepts. So the target could be, so I work with a lot of financial advisors. I work with banks, other business consultants. And so a target market for an advisor could be, there's one guy I coached, it's Verizon employees, right? That's his target market. But that's not his bullseye. His bullseye are people who are 5 to 7 years away from retirement, or Adam, who focuses on optometrists around the country. That's his target. But his bullseye are optometrists that are going to be selling their business within 5 years. So very, very narrow. So the principle at hand here is the narrower, the better. And the narrower, the more relevant and therefore compelling and interesting and effective our messaging will be. The mistake that a lot of people make is, well, I don't want to leave these people out or these people out. And so they make the net a little bigger with how they talk about what they do, when they should be doing the exact opposite, because all it does is weaken the message. And yes, you can have more than one target. And yes, you can have more than one bullseye on a target, but it's all about getting narrow.
So you give us an example, if you will, of where somebody became radically different, either a person or a brand, and achieved some high level growth.
Yeah, well, that's a good question. So again, I'm going to come to you from my world of financial advisors, because that's where I have the most examples. So I want to tell you about a guy named Todd McDonald out of Albany, New York. And so Todd wanted to work with construction. So he worked with contractors in construction. But that wasn't so different. There was a lot of people that worked with different kinds of construction and everything. And then he slowly over time narrowed his focus at who does he serve the best? Who does he like working with? Right? You don't often hear the word joy when it comes to business, but when you find the right market, it actually can be very joyful, because you're usually attracting the kind of folks you like, you're passionate about, sometimes similar things. And so he actually owned when he was in college, he owned a driveway paving business. So he kind of knew a little bit about construction, although it was very limited residential stuff. So long story short, the difference that he's created is he focuses on family owned, closely held, heavy construction companies. His clients build roads, they build runways, they build bridges, they build office buildings. What makes him different is his narrow focus. He's so narrow, there's virtually no one else in the country who does exactly what he does. So it's hard to be unique, but he's about as close as they come to being unique in his business. Usually, if you're thinking about what makes you different, what makes you unique, it's hard to be unique with one thing. I got to tell you, Shark, over the last several years with COVID and everything, I can't tell you how many value propositions I've looked at for various folks and various businesses, and they all pretty much say the same thing. And then every now and then I'll pull out a gem of something that's a little bit different. And then when you combine 2 or 3 unique things, now you got something that makes you a little bit different. So it's usually a combination of 2 or 3 things that can create that uniqueness, and not one thing.
Well, I wanted to jump into a section of the book. I love the part where you talked about a double-edged sword. The explosion of new technology has made it easier and less costly to reach people with your message, at least in theory. But since these tools are so easy to use, message bombardment is only increasing. Everywhere we look, there's a message that says, pay attention to me. So talk a little bit, if you will, there's a little bit more about it in another paragraph, but talk a little bit about that double-edged sword with that relevance.
Well, yeah. I mean, so that's what's created this explosion, this volcano of information, right? Where everyone has the ability to do a blog, everyone has the ability to do a podcast, everyone has the ability to have a website, to send out a bunch of emails. Everyone has the ability to do all of this. Now, some people do it better than others. Some people look like they're doing it well, but there's nothing behind it. But it's hard to distinguish.
Yeah.
How do you know what's legit and what isn't? And just in my business of being a consultant, a speaker, well, how do you become a consultant, a speaker? Well, you print it on your business card, if you even have a business card these days, right? So, so it's good that it's easy to get it out, but it's hard because everyone's getting it out, right? So that's the jumble. So one of the messages of my other books before Radical Relevance were devoted to referrals and introductions and getting connected, right? So what's the easiest, fastest, straightest line to relevance with a prospect who doesn't know you? Well, it's an introduction from someone they know and trust. And you leverage that borrowed trust, and that gets your foot in the door and sometimes get you all the way in the door, depending on the level of trust in that relationship. So that's where the two messages come together in this sea of marketing message overload. Let's get introduced to people in better ways, and everything else becomes less important. Now, you still got to talk about your value in a good way. You still got to earn your own trust, but at least we're going to get our foot in the door at a higher level.
Well, you lay out early in the book, and then you lay it out really well through the rest of the book, the 17 rules of radical relevance. We could talk about this for hours, but what are your top few rules that really stand out?
Yeah, I'll give you a couple. So the first one we've covered, which is the shortest line, straightest line to relevance, is an introduction. Number two is give your clients or customers a seat at the table. And what I mean by that is, generally speaking, you don't want to develop any marketing messaging or make any strategic or even tactical sometimes decisions in your business without consulting some of your clients or customers. How you word things may be different than the words your clients or customers or prospects might be using. So you got to get that feedback, whether you have, strategic retreats with some clients, or you have an advisory board, or you just have a few folks. You say, hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of that? I'll give you one example. I do this all the time. And one of my clients, Michael Schmitz, out in San Mateo, California, I said to Michael, tell me about how you perceive my business and what makes me different and what's the value I bring and all that. So he says, Bill, when I tell other people about you, I tell them that Bill Cates makes asking for referrals as natural as breathing. And I think, wow, that's pretty good. I never would have thought of saying that. And actually, if I said that, it would sound like marketing hype. But if I quote Michael Schmitz, who actually said it, right, which is a testimonial, I like to call them testimonials, then now it becomes more real. And so I got that from a client. And so give your customers a seat at the table. I'll give you one more, and that is, move away from the I, our, and we messaging to the you and the your messaging. You can't avoid saying I, you can't avoid saying we and our from time to time. And if you look at most emails you send, you probably say I, or we. I do that. Sometimes I got to just shift the orientation of the sentence so it doesn't look like I. And so this is about empathy. This is about having messaging that your prospects can see themselves in. This is about knowing them so well and talking about the problems and challenges and the opportunities and the aspirations in the right words, in the right terms, that they see themselves in that. And once they see themselves and they say, oh, this person gets me, they understand me, they have a sense of who I am, then they want to know more about you, and they want to know your I and we and our statements, but not usually at the very beginning.
Well, I have a follow-up to this, but I want to tell you about one more that really stood out for me, and that was number 15. So radical rule of relevance number 15 is your prospects and clients aren't mind readers. It's a short chapter, but it's got a lot of punch, and it really touches on neuroscience, but elaborate, if you will, a little bit more about how we leverage neuroscience in marketing, because I love the idea that people make things so complex that they forget that the brain needs some powers to process it, especially with the 3,000 other messages.
Yeah. There's so much. Let me cover two concepts that have very practical, tactical implications. So first of all, the brain wants to conserve calories. The brain wants to conserve energy. It's how it keeps the organism alive. Less energy spent. That's why during COVID, I put on the COVID-19, literally, right? My brain was conserving energy. And so what that means is that the brain is looking for simplicity and clarity. And if your messaging is at all confusing, if it's complicated, if it has jargon, if it's not well written and read easily, anything that will throw the brain off, the brain doesn't want to work so darn hard, and you'll lose people. Now, if someone's really, really interested, they'll filter through all the crap you've written and still may reach out, but those are fewer and far between. And so clarity is paramount in how you talk about what you do. And it's sometimes hard to be clear when we're so close to things. And that's why we bring other people into the equation, like clients, perhaps, to do that. So that's one aspect of the brain. The other is that's related to this. It's a concept called cognitive fluency. And here's what it does. And this goes to the clients, our mind readers. You want to give your clients, or let your prospects, I should say, know the path of doing business with you. What is the path to become a client or customer? What is the path to working with you? What does that look like? Lay it out, give it a name, give it the 3-step process, the 5-step process, whatever. Because if you don't do that and they're not clear on the next steps, the brain automatically leaps to the conclusion that working with you is going to be complicated and confusing, and the brain doesn't like complicated and confusing. So lay it out. When I work with folks and I say, are you teaching your clients exactly what it looks like? Do they know the next step? And when they start doing that, it becomes easier to move people through the process because they know what the whole picture looks like and they know where they stand within the process. And it actually makes it easier to go to the next process because they kind of know what's coming anyway. So it's a much softer way to bring people through your process by just letting them know what it looks like.
Couldn't agree more. So let's talk a little bit further then about the concept of relevance. You make a distinction between strategic relevance and tactical relevance. Kind of elaborate your point there.
Yeah, I see it as, and I know a lot of people aren't quite sure the distinctions between strategies and tactics. And so strategies are bigger pictures, right? Bigger picture stuff. Most people that I work with immediately say, I need to do this. I want to do this. People are looking for tactical answers when they haven't considered the full strategy yet, right? So strategic relevance are things like, what is your target market, right? Or markets? What are some of the things that are going to make you look a little different or better in the marketplace? What are the big benefits and things? So it's the decisions you make. And then the tactical relevance is how you implement those decisions. So if you have a sense of how you benefit people, the problems you solve, that's the strategic side. You figured that out. Now, how do you talk about that? How do you describe that? And how do you get that message in front of people? So that's the tactical side of things. And you need both, obviously. And if you're working weak tactics with a good strategy, you might get some results. But if you're working good tactics with a weak strategy, you'll get some results. But if you put the two together, that's where it fits.
If we could get the thinkers and doers to be on the same wavelength, we could achieve so much in the world. Later on in the book, you talk about a model for determining the problems that we can solve for businesses. Elaborate a little bit further, if you will, on that model.
Yeah, I love this model. I didn't invent it. I didn't make it up. The guy who I got it from probably didn't make it up initially, but the way he expressed it was quite good. So it's the last chapter of the book, in fact. And I got it from a guy named Michael Scott. He's a venture capitalist in New England. And he talks about the difference between latent or hidden problems and blatant or known problems, right? If it's latent, we don't know we have it, right? And if it's blatant, we know we have it. And then on the other axis, it's aspirational versus critical. So if it's something we'd like to solve, be nice someday to get that fixed, to get this, get that. That's cool. But are we going to move heaven and earth to do that? Maybe not. But if it's a critical problem, if we're bleeding money, if it's costing us money, if there's a hard and fast deadline, then we will move heaven and earth to solve that problem. So the point of this is we want to try to position a business in a way, and it's not always easy, but it's in a position where you're in that quadrant where you're addressing problems that are blatant and critical, meaning your prospects know they have the problem and they've got to solve the problem. It's not aspirational. Now, again, not every business can be in that place, but sometimes you can help show someone a problem they didn't know they had. So he calls that, oh God, I forgot the term all of a sudden, missionary selling, where you have to dig and show them there is a problem. And sometimes they think something is aspirational. All right, maybe it really is. So if you get them wanting it bad enough, then maybe you can move them forward as well. But best place, is it a critical problem? Do they know they have it? Then they'll most likely take action. And hopefully, if you're the one who pointed it out to them, they'll mostly likely take action with you.
Well, latent and blatant were two of the reindeer that don't get used much. That's what I thought latent and blatant were. But I will tell you, that is not your last chapter. Chapter 21, putting it all together, was your last
I'm sorry.
chapter.
Well,
I know. Say, I read the book. So
you did read the book, and you
I
read
did.
it more recently than I wrote it. So
I know. I know it drives some people when I remember that stuff more recently. Then, do you remember the fourth paragraph on page 112? So, Bill, I asked this of all my guests, and you're really close to the waters there in Maryland. But what is your favorite kind of shark, and why? Do you have a favorite kind of shark?
Yeah, my favorite kind of shark is the kenneth of the world, because you're a nice shark.
Thank you.
You'll circle around and you'll get your prey, but you do it in a very gentle, nice way.
I don't bite. So
yeah, Maryland has more, people don't know this, more water coastline than any other state in the United States because of the Chesapeake Bay and all the tributaries and the creeks and all of that stuff. It's kind of like in Maryland, Annapolis. It's what creek do you live on? And so I don't really know much about sharks, although I did learn recently that in most cases they're not aggressive as they're portrayed to be.
Oh gosh, no.
They'll generally, if they see a human, someone big, could be as big as them, depending on the type of shark, they'll just go the other way.
Well, even the large ones. I mean, you have to be respectful when you're in their territory, but It's never been the way it was portrayed in the movies. But yeah, in the Maryland waters, there's a few freshwater sharks that come into the tributaries, and so they're not seen very often, but they are seen, and so it's always. I
understand there's some freshwater porpoises as well, and I didn't know about that. So and maybe brackish water even. So it's a little different. But yeah, it's cool.
I wouldn't describe any of the waters in Maryland as anything like the Caribbean. So
no.
Well, Bill, it's that special time in the show. Are you ready for the 5 most interesting and important and radical questions that you're going to be asked today?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I will participate anyway because you wouldn't let me get ready. But lay it on me. I'll do my best.
All right. Number 1, friends are coming into town. You're in Maryland, and let's say you're taking them over to Baltimore. Are you taking them to an Orioles game or a Ravens game?
That's a good question. Probably a Ravens game, because the Ravens fans are just so rabid. And, I grew up a Washington, dare I say it, Redskins, now Commanders fan. And I had trouble getting into the Ravens, but I went to a game and I loved it. The defense plays so dang hard. I love the Orioles too, don't get me wrong, but Ravens.
Well, it'll take me 20 or 30 years to remember the Commander's name anyway. So,
well, I know. What's the shortcut for Commanders?
I just remember that as the team that my Cowboys would beat as often as possible. So,
well, I know. Yeah, exactly.
And we would lose a few too. So, number 2, you just got back from Iceland.
I did. Yes.
Glaciers or volcanoes?
Oh, volcanoes. Volcanoes are dangerous and cool.
Absolutely beautiful.
And when I say cool, not temperature cool.
Yeah.
Although I got to tell you, I went into an ice cave in a glacier in Iceland. It was very neat. It's just how the water and the melting and the volcanic ash and all works. It cut this long tunnel of ice, and you can see all the layers of volcanic ash and different types of water. It was very, very, very cool. And there was a volcano spewing a bit as I was coming in from the airport to the hotel when I arrived. So
Iceland's amazing. It's one of the few places in the world where it just draws a dangerous volcano draws in tourists nonstop. So,
oh yeah, the more eruption, the more people just like
exactly.
last minute drop everything.
Like a concert. Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah.
All right. Number 3,
All right.
being different or being relevant?
Oh, relevant. If the difference is relevant, cool.
Yeah, there you go.
So one of the words, one of the the rules of relevance is only differences that matter, right? Only if differences that are relevant that have a clear benefit to the receiver of the message are relevant. So relevance has always been the most important aspect of any type of sales or marketing. There is nothing more relevant than relevance, because if the message isn't relevant, it'll be ignored. And it's as simple as that. I mean, the first time anyone tried to sell something to anyone was, what's in it for them?
Mm-hmm. Great point. All right. Number 4, friends again coming over, or could be your personal preference. Crab cakes or crab legs?
Crab cakes. Maryland blue crabs. They're not the kind of crab legs that are people used to the snow king crab thingy.
It's not Alaskan king crab
in the Maryland blue crab. So nothing better than a good crab cake. But if you're not in Tidewater, Virginia or Maryland, if you're in North Carolina or anywhere else in the world that says Maryland style crab cakes, don't bother.
No.
Don't get it. Wait till you come to Maryland and talk to me, and we'll get some good.
Yeah, exactly. It's like when they say Memphis style barbecue and they're in Seattle. It's not. No. All right. Number 5, and the most important question that you're going to be asked today is biscuits or cornbread?
Oh, cornbread. Because I grew up on cornbread from my dad. My dad was from Texas. He made not sweet cornbread. I kind of favor a little sweeter cornbread. But I'll tell you, he used to take cornbread he'd make fresh.
Goes well with chili.
Still warm. Well, yeah.
Brisket.
But here's what he did. It's going to sound weird. He would crumble it up in milk and make like a cereal of cornbread and milk. And I'm telling you, I used to love that. I have fond memories of my dad and I sitting there eating cornbread and milk.
Well, Bill, where can people find out more about you? You're a radicalist, your radical thoughts on relevant. But where can people find out more about you, get a copy of the book and more?
Yeah, I'll give you 3 things real quick. RadicalRelevanceBook.com, RadicalRelevanceBook.com. There's a little video there, kind of see if it makes sense for you. ReferralCoach.com is my main website, ReferralCoach.com. And then I have a guide that people can get that's free. exponentialgrowthguide.com, exponentialgrowthguide.com. It's free. Have at it. Send me your questions. Love to help.
Perfect. I'll put all those notes on my website and in the show notes as well. Bill, thank you again so much for being with us today on A Shark's Perspective.
Hey, Shark, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So there was my conversation with Bill Cates, a client acquisition expert, a Hall of Fame speaker, a CSP, an entrepreneur, the founder of the Cates Academy for Relationship Marketing, and the author of 3 bestsellers on referrals, as well as the author of Radical Relevance. Sharpen Your Marketing Message, cut through the noise, win more ideal clients. Let's take a look at 3 key takeaways from our conversation with him. First, great reminder on that it boils down to really truly knowing your target market and audience. What you feel may be relevant to that audience is only true if you've gone beyond and found your bullseye. As Bill said, the narrower the better, and the narrower the more relevant and more interesting your message will be to them. Don't cast too wide a net, and keep the nets away from the sharks, by the way. Second, he says that the only difference that matters is what matters, and make sure your different is relevant. True, that it's hard to be unique. You can be unique in your market, but know that someone else will probably try to copy you if you're successful. They'll try to copy that one thing. He reminds us that if you can combine 2 or 3 things, a combo if you will, then it will help you become unique. I just spoke about this for one of my keynotes at a conference, and I pointed this out that regardless of whether or not it's your unique story, just be ready to resonate with your audience, to articulate it, because you have to tell your story better than anyone else to be unique. Third, another one of my favorite parts of the conversation was the reminder of the power of cognitive fluency, which is one of my favorite behavioral science presentation points. Basically, cognitive fluency refers to the subjective experience of the ease or difficulty of completing a task. And with people considering you, whether it's through the lens of your storytelling, your UX design, your sales process, or other, help them see and follow a simple path to convert. I've yet to understand why we add friction that doesn't need to be there. Keep it simple, Shark. I think that's the KISS method anyway. Got a question? Send me an email to kenneth@asharksperspective.com. Thank you again for the privilege of your time, and I'm so thankful to everyone who listens. Be radically relevant today. Not for you, but for them. And join us on the next episode of A Shark's Perspective.